Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Activities for People Living at Home with Dementia. My name is Martha Brown, and I am your volunteer with Dementia Friendly Fort Worth. We are proud to offer this series with funding from the Area Agency on Aging and the United Way of Tarrant County. These programs are recorded and are made available for viewing through a YouTube channel for future use. I am your host for today's activities. Our topic today is brought to you by Peggy Spear with the Amon Carter Museum of American Art. Her show of pictures today is about Black History Month. Peggy, it is all yours.
Thank you, Martha, for that introduction. All right, let me share screen. Let's hope I have my act together a little more than I did last week. Sheesh. All right, here we go. So today we're going to look at, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I just tacked on a fifth one. 4 artworks that are featuring Black subjects. Some of them are created by Black artists, and some of them are created by white artists. So we'll just kind of, talk it through as we go along. So the first artwork we're going to look at is the only sculpture we're going to look at today, and it's entitled The Friedman. So can you tell me what you see?
Well, Friedman. No, we see.
Yes.
He has no shirt on.
Yeah, well, he just has a loincloth.
A loincloth, yeah. Yeah, you're right. That's all he's wearing. Do you notice anything? He does have one thing on his wrist, though, and I'm not sure if you're able to see it in this picture.
Almost looks like a shackle.
It is. It's a manacle on one wrist, but in the other hand, he's holding it.
Ah, yes. Now I see it. Yes.
Wow. He's also quite muscular.
Very muscular. Very muscular. And the artist was really interested in the in anatomical accuracy. And so he would either use models, or we suspect he used a Black model. And we also think he might have been referencing or calling on Greek sculpture and Roman sculpture. If you think of antiquities, that the sculptures you would see in ancient Greece and Rome, they were very muscular and very and dressed similar to this. So that was something, that was a tool actually, this that loincloth and his anatomy is something that would kind of link him to a respected art of Greek gods and goddesses. So they were making him look very human, which at this time, this was created in 1963, what was going on then?
Civil War.
Yeah.
Civil War, dead smack in the middle of Civil War. And so the fact that this artwork, the artist, John Quincy Adams Ward, was an abolitionist. And so the fact that he created this artwork that was so powerfully showing a freed man, a former slave, in such a stoic, respectable position was very different from what people were used to seeing. What else are we seeing that might be a little different than how Black people were often portrayed in art at the time?
Well, he wasn't looking down, and he didn't look shameful.
No. That's very, very good observation, Martha. No, he's looking up and out. What does that look kind of convey to you?
That he looks to the future, maybe?
Yes, exactly, Yetta. Yes, he's looking to the future, and he doesn't seem excited, but he doesn't seem, like Martha said, maybe shameful or scared or downcast eyes. So there's a sense of hope, but a sense of reserved hope. Because during this time, as African Americans were being emancipated, this was created, inspired by and created after Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation. So this was, the abolitionist was very moved by Lincoln's words. And so no one knew at that point what a freed slave what that future held for them. And so we see, okay, he's got one manacle in his hand, and then he's got one still on his wrist. So there's kind of this limbo of, well, I'm free, but am I really free? What does freedom look like now? So that playing into that look you're talking about of looking to the future, but not sure what we're seeing. And so if, you know, he's wearing a loincloth, do you think that that's something you would wear when you're a fugitive or, you know, recently emancipated? Don't you think you would probably be wearing clothing?
Probably.
Most likely.
Unless they took his clothing away.
Right. And we don't know.
Mm-mm.
We don't know. We don't know if this person was a real person. We don't know who the model was, if he actually had a model, but yeah, we don't know. That loincloth again was more of maybe an artistic device to, they have nothing. If they're emancipated, they're freed with maybe nothing, but they're human. They have that like goddess appearance to it. So that's still that kind of human link. His face, and if you see this sculpture in person, it's probably a little under 2 feet, and you can walk around it. You can see it in the round. He's sitting on a tree stump, but his face is not a caricature of what African American were typically portrayed, which are often the oversized lips, a very wide nose. He looks to have his own very distinct facial features, which wasn't playing into the stereotype, which was, again, very different than what audiences were used to seeing. He's got a mustache and a beard. I'm not sure if you can see that in this detail. And he looks very dignified.
That's
and
a
so
good
it's
word.
Yeah, dignified. Yeah, and that was his goal, was to have this a dignified Black man that was different than what we were typically seeing, but to make people think, who were viewing this, think about the political situation, the morality surrounding this. So it wasn't just meant to be a beautiful work of art of a Black man. It was really meant to make its audiences think about the place of Black men in now what would be an emancipated America. So this is, and this, he has the shackles on, and so there's several copies of this sculpture throughout the country. There weren't a ton made because during this time metal was really expensive. We were in war, and a plaster cast was initially made, and this is the bronze version. But what's cool about the one that Eamon Carter has is with it, and you don't see it here, with it, there's a little key that sits with the artwork. It's a brass key. It's probably a couple of inches long. And it actually unlocks the shackle on his wrist.
Wow.
It's really cool. And on the shackle is an engraving to the 54th, I think it's, what is it? I have it written down. I don't want to say it wrong. The Massachusetts 54th Infantry, which was predominantly African-American troops that served in the Union during the Civil War. So this was also a nod to these Black men who were losing their lives to help other Black Americans gain their freedom. So it's a very layered artwork. It's a very beautiful artwork. And this is one that's always up on view at the Eamon Carter. So whenever we're thawed out and you have time to go back to the Carter, you'll always see this one on view.
Is that in a particular section of the museum?
It is, and we just reorganized our galleries mostly thematically. So this is, I think, in the area that's kind of defining America. And so you can find this under sort of the beginning of American arts in terms of representing America.
Mm-hmm. Peggy, I want to take you away from this just for a second. Is it possible to find a floor plan of the museum online somewhere?
Yes, I can email you the link after we have our maps, I believe. You can look at our map guides on the internet.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. All right, so we're seeing this, a very dignified man. We're going to switch gears, and we're looking at now. This is one of 10 pieces in a series called Runaways. So what do we see here?
Well, we see a slave, but in handcuffs this time, and shackles, in leg shackles.
Yes. And is he sitting or is he kneeling?
Kneeling.
He's
Can you
kneeling.
tell? Yeah, he's kneeling.
He's
which
pleading.
is he's pleading. Yes, Jan. Was it Yetta who said pleading?
No, that was Hans who said that. Yeah.
Hans, yeah, you're right. He's pleading, which is a very different type of demeanor. Is that dignified when you're on your hands and your knees begging?
No.
So this. Oh, go ahead. Say that again, Janine.
I love the banner.
The banner, yeah. I am not a man and a brother. Or
Yeah.
am I not a man and a brother? Yes. So these artworks were created, you can see, in 1993, but that image of the slave was something this particular artist was appropriating, which means removing from its original context and reusing it in a different context from runaway fugitive slave classified, so to speak, from the 1800s. And so these are the types of images you would see of Black men, typically Black men, and women, but mostly men, portrayed. So it's not a favorable view of African American men. It's kind of a demoralizing view of, and there's the caricature. You don't really see much of his face, but you can see the oversized lips and the nose, which very offensive, but that was how that caricature of African American would continue to live. So this artist would find these classifieds, and I'll show you a few more of they hang in a series of 10. Typically, I mean, we can hang them individually, but you can see all 10 of them above each other is how they're typically displayed. And in the words below it, he had 10 different friends. He asked 10 different friends to write basically a police report style description of him. So these descriptions are about the actual artist, not who you're seeing in the image above.
Ooh.
So some of the words here, it says closely cut hair, almost shaved, mild looking, with oval shaped black rimmed glasses that are somewhat conservative, thinly striped black and white short sleeve t-shirt, blue jeans, silver watch, and African looking bracelet on arm. His face is somewhat wider on bottom near the jaw, full lipped, he's Black, very warm and sincere, mild mannered, and laughs often. So this is how a lot of these classified ads were basically written, where it was a little bit about personality, a little bit about what they were wearing, and then physical description, which he told them to write a police report. So his friends, so there's this connecting of kind of wiping people down to their bare essentials. And a police report is often a negative association. So he's using that kind of that paradox of like, here's a police report describing somebody, but you're using a police report to often catch somebody who's bad. And so again, perpetuating this thought that African Americans are always the criminal. So it's very layered, very heavy, but they're really beautiful when they hang. Don't they feel they were made in another era?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. But it is, I thought that piece, the written piece, that was very positive.
Yes, in that particular one it was. Some of the other ones I have, here we can read here. Some of them are nicer than others. I mean, these are his friends, so they're not owners of him, which when these would have been written in the 1800s, it was someone writing about property, which they're writing about somebody they have an intimate relationship in. So again, there's that paradox of writing about a person, but if you view people as property, where does that kind of line?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So here, another one. Runaway Glenn, a young Black man, 28 years old, about 5 feet 6 inches high, dressed in blue jeans, a blue button-down shirt, black shoes, medium build, very short haircut, not quite shaved head, large neck, green tinted sunglasses. That's very cut and dry. That really feels more like a police description than the other one that was saying, you know, distinguished or, you know, great chiseled jaw. Like some of these are nicer than others. But again, he's using these different images, appropriating them and combining them with words about him.
So is he African American, the artist?
Yes, this artist is African American. The sculpture we just saw, that was a white man. This is an African American artist. He was born in 1960. He's still creating work today. We just acquired this artwork a couple of years ago, not that long ago. And we had all 10 on view at once when we reopened after our renovation. And I think right now we only have one of them up. You have to rest them because they are works on paper. But a lot of museums, not a lot, a few museums across the country have a copy of this. I think there were only 45 that were actually made in the series. So it was really cool that we were able to acquire all 10 together and be able to exhibit them. And so he's really talking about too, this idea of identity, and identity of Black people can almost cannot be removed from this position culture has placed on them. And so it's a heavy work. It's a lot to think about now versus then, versus there are some similarities, things now with the Black Lives Matter movement. How are we placing equal value on the justice system now between Blacks and whites? So it felt like a very timely piece, but it's a lot to work through, and it's just a different way to think about all that's been going on. All right, so we've got, this is a lithography or lithograph. So these are works on paper. They're about poster size. And we're going to move on to now a photograph that first appeared in a magazine, Life magazine, in the 60s, or excuse me, in the 40s. So what do we see here?
He's smoking.
Smoking.
Or is that a toothpick?
No, you're right. It's a cigarette.
Okay.
I was
smoke.
figuring it was a cigarette or a cigar.
A cigar. I think it's a cigarette. You're right. It could be a cigar, but just given I know a little bit more about him than you guys do at this point. So I don't think he would have had a cigar.
Okay.
The window's broken.
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out what that was. If it was snow on the street outside.
Yes, the window is broken.
Yeah, so the window's broken. What does that make you think with broken windows?
Poverty.
Old.
Poverty, yeah.
Poverty. Yep. And someone
cold.
said old.
Cold, yes. Old.
Or cold, yeah, old. Probably old, meaning it's rundown building. Probably cold, that we're not getting protection from elements.
Mm-hmm.
He's wearing a sweatshirt kind of something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it looks like maybe a heavy flannel with a collar.
With his hands inside the cuffs.
Ooh, good point.
Yeah. Good. Can you see what he's looking at, or do you have any suspicions what he might be looking at?
People, just the street life outside.
Yeah, just outside, maybe street. You can see across the street another building.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the title, you'll see Red Jackson. That's his name. His actual name is Leonard Red is his nickname, Red Jackson. And they're in Harlem, New York. Have any of you ever been to Harlem?
No.
Seen pictures.
Yeah, so, North Manhattan. But oh, go ahead.
That's where the Apollo is.
Yes. So Harlem is historically and still is today a Black neighborhood. And so you might have heard of the Harlem Renaissance. That was happening around this time as well, where it was a revitalization in African American arts, jazz, art fine artists like painters, photographers, performers, things like that. So
The Harlem Globetrotters.
You see the list.
I don't know. I
don't know.
think those
They're
the
really from-
Globetrotters are from all over the country. I'm not sure how that origin happened, but they could have originally started in Harlem. I don't know their story. But so Gordon Parks, he's a Black photographer from Kansas. He moved up to Minnesota because his mom wanted him to get out of the segregated town that he was growing up in. And so he moved up to Minnesota. And in high school, fell in love with photography and dropped out and then literally made a life for himself as a photographer. So by this point in his career, he was pretty well known. This piece he did, he focused on, he'd been thinking about it for a while, 3 years prior, and then he was given the chance with Life magazine to feature this story that was happening in Harlem. And so it was about the focal character person. His name was Red Jackson. He was a 17-year-old boy. And he got his name, which you can't tell in these photographs because they're black and white, but his hair was a little reddish, and that was where he got his nickname Red. And so he's a sweet young boy in the pictures. He's got freckles. You can see in some of the pictures dead on. So Parks met this boy Jackson, or Red, when through a plainclothes police officer introduced him. And it took a couple of weeks for Red and Parks to form a rapport, for Red to feel he could trust Parks. And then about 2 weeks into their friendship, he started taking pictures. For the next 4 weeks, he took pictures. And he took hundreds and hundreds of pictures during this friendship. And so of the hundreds of pictures that were taken, it showed basically the whole range of his life. The good, the bad, the ugly, the emotional with the private scenes, the rote routine. Do you have to leave, Martha?
No, Steve left.
Oh, Steve left. The day-to-day, him doing chores at his house as a 17-year-old. But then some of the gang, he was a leader of a gang called the Midtowners. So then the other side of his life, where he's doing, the normal child thing, but then, exposed and involved in violence through his gang. And so then there was also a big, he was celebrated as the mayor boy in Harlem. And there was a big event during these 4 weeks celebrating him. And it was a ceremonial event where he was giving keys, to the city and all this. And there's a lot of really good and happy and things we would all relate to that were photographed. Well, when Parks submitted all of his photographs to Life, of the hundreds, they boiled it down to 21 photographs. And they were 21 photographs that really showed the gritty, the ugly, the stereotypical of what you picture a impoverished boy in a Black town, so to speak, with the violence and the broken window. That's not where he lives. He was in an abandoned area to hide from things that were happening outside and just kind of watching. That's not where he lived, but upon first blush, you might assume, oh, this is sad. This is where he lives. There are really sweet pictures in the larger series, not one made it to the magazine, of him hugging his mom, of him washing dishes, of him with his brother. But instead, they were cropping things. So what was a larger street scene of maybe a fist fight happening, they would really crop in and focus on the violence, not maybe it wasn't as serious as the photograph was making it look or whatever. So this is when the article ran. That was where the picture fell on the first page. And the words themselves, Parks did not write the words. Parks was brought in when they were deciding what this spread would look like. His goal was to expand the views of Harlem, that was what he wanted to expand the views of Harlem. There's a lot more going on than what you just hear about with gang violence. And the article did exactly what he hoped it had, and it reinforced the gang violence. So when Parks went in to talk about, no, I don't want this to be the focus, they didn't really care. And he said, look, I worked so hard to build this rapport with this boy, and this isn't what I told him we were going to do. And sure enough, when the boy read the article, he said, damn, Mr. Parks, you made a criminal out of me. So it was unfortunate that that's how the article ended up coming out, but it was such a success to his readers that Parks, the photographer, was brought on staff as the first full-time Black photographer.
Wow.
So a lot of things, again, with this, he didn't want to have the stereotype. They produced the stereotype, and that's what made him famous, but that's what gave him a job. And so it's good with the bad, and which you can see with a lot of these artworks. It's a sad history, but then propelling some of these artists into a different realm.
I really like the juxtaposition of the stark black and stark white in this image.
Isn't it beautiful?
Yes.
Oh, go ahead.
I wonder if he ever made it up with red.
Fine.
Oh,
How that went out.
Your
Some-
audio almost.
something went wrong with your audio, Peggy.
Mine.
Yeah. You're sounding like this.
Can you hear me now?
It's
I
still,
can hear you, but it's bad.
All right, here we go.
but it just started.
How about now?
Oh, perfect.
Good.
Yay,
Oh.
never a dull moment.
I particularly noticed, probably from the abstract art person in me, that the all of the white in the image is negative. The broken glass, the hunched shoulders, the rundown building windows, stuff like that. Even the cigarette, if you, of course, at that time that wasn't negative, but today it would be
Right.
perceived.
Mhm.
Well, no, but I think you're right within the context of this image, because he's a child. He's 17 years old. I mean, again, a different era, but
Mhm.
he seems unattended. That cigarette it has an air of bad boy to it.
Mhm.
Yeah, so the Gordon Parks, we actually just about a year ago had a large solo exhibition of just his photographs. And his subjects were, he used to do fashion, he photographed for the military, he photographed for the New Jersey Standard Oil Company, he photographed for Life. So he photographed a broad range of things, but people typically. And he was very good at it. I mean, his artwork, it was an art. There's artful feeling to all of his photographs. It wasn't necessarily, while this is telling a story in a photojournalistic type of way, he was very masterful with lighting, like Janine just hit on. So his details were beautiful, despite maybe whatever the context of the image was. So that's what really gained him a lot of, in the fashion world, he was really good at that. He did a government series about African-American workers at the Capitol building and things like that. And they were beautiful photographs, as much as they were telling a story. So this photographer, Gordon Parks, he's in a lot of collections across the country. He impacted so many African-American artists in general, photographers, because he was able to make a living as an artist this way. So if ever you're in a museum, a photography section, you will most likely see a photograph by Gordon Parks on the wall. And then this one last artwork we'll kind of breeze through because I know we're running out of time. But this is by an artist, Henry William Johnson. So this is a sweet one. This is a screen print, so it's a work on paper. What do you see here?
Family.
Family. Do they look like a wealthy family, a middle-class family, a poor family?
They're probably poor, but the father looks more poor than the mother.
And why do you say that,
Very-
Yetta?
She is dressed very nicely and wears shoes and stockings.
Yes. Yeah, and he has that patchwork.
Mm-hmm. Bare feet.
Bare feet. Yep.
Pants
Really
too
good
short,
comparison.
and the pants too short.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's the fashion.
Yeah, that and he grew up in South Carolina, so he could be referencing a Southern fashion for sure. This was painted or created, wasn't really painted, in 1942. So what's happening then?
World War II.
Yeah, World War II. He was working in France up until about, or Europe until about 1938. And then with the threat of World War II, he came back to the United States. And so he was thinking, when he returned, he was really, his artwork completely shifted, his style. And so he was really focused on religious scenes and scenes of just everyday scenes of Black families, Black people, Black pastors, Black sitter, anything, Black models. He was really interested in getting back to, and he himself was a Black artist. And so he was really interested in depicting African-American sitters. And so, especially during a time when the world was just being completely divided, these types of familial scenes just made you feel a little better inside.
They don't
Oh, go ahead.
noses. They don't have any noses.
That's a really good observation. And so he's painting in what they call, which art historians don't love, but it's called the naive or native style. And it's meant to be like, oh, it's so simplistic. They had no formal education. Right. He did. And it's kind of like that folk art we've seen in the past of, not much depth perception, flattening of faces. He knew how to make things have depth and texture, but he chose to not.
Yeah, purpose.
Yeah, this was deliberate. And so that was part of his major shift, was now he was really simplifying detail that what he would have once included. And so in that same vein, he doesn't have a nose. What else seems kind of plainer to you about this artwork?
Very straight arms, no elbows, exaggerated appendages, no hair on the guys, and if it's hair on the little girl, it's the same color as her dress.
Yeah, no, that's true. It's she doesn't have hair, but it's the same colors. He's only using about 5 or 6 colors, which was very characteristic of his artwork at this time. And so that's part of that, that, like you pointed out, the distortion of body, things aren't to scale, the flattening of facial features, of all features. I mean, yes, you can tell he's got shoulders, but you don't know, like, he kind of seems like he might be angled toward us. He might be, there's no depth. And then a very simple color palette. And so this artist, he was famous while he was living, but then his wife tragically died of cancer in 1944. And he was in Denmark, or he went back to Denmark where her family was from, and he had a mental breakdown. And he came back to New York, and the last 23 years of his life, he never got over her death and lived in an asylum and never created artwork again in the last 23 years of his life. So while he was producing very vibrant and colorful and happy things, and then stopped. So we're lucky we have these beautiful artworks from him.
I'm trying to figure out what the statement he was trying to make with the almost mouths.
Same color as her stockings.
Yeah, and they're not in the right spot.
I think that's part of that abstract folk art type of style.
Okay. Same as the straight arms and stuff.
Yes, exactly. You're exactly right. Exactly that. And see, he doesn't have red anywhere else. Yeah, he might have wanted to use that pink. You could have used that pink, but
It would have taken away.
it would have had a different vibe, don't you think?
Mhm.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. And I still can't figure out how that little girl is standing or sitting. Are they sitting down? Is she in her lap? Because she's not holding her like the guy is the boy.
Yeah.
I
Oh.
think
Or is it a boy?
I think the man holds the daughter and she sits on his hip and the other one sits in the mother's lap somehow.
Yeah.
she's sitting down on that orange
Yeah.
bench. But again, it's so flattened that you can't really tell.
Mhm.
But do you get a sense of what does this make you family? What are you getting from this family? What kind of
Close.
relationship? Closeness?
And love.
Yeah. It's a nice family, I think.
Mm-hmm.
They love each other.
Mhm. The world may not see them as loving each other because of how they're painted, but because of their position in the picture, we can tell that they are.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
I mean,
The
and you can think too of family pictures you might have taken or family pictures you've seen of yourself as a child. Sometimes they feel a little flat or they feel a little not cold, but trying to get four people to pose in a picture, there's a little bit of a relatability to it as well of your own family.
Mhm. Well, you
So
may
I'm just going
think
to
of
show
it.
you what we're not even going to talk about because I know we're out of time, but one more picture. This is one of a beautiful piece in our collection, and it doesn't come out often because it is a work on paper. But we always like to highlight it right around Martin Luther King Day. And Mervyn Jules is a white artist. He's actually from Baltimore. So I felt a connection to this artist because we grew up in the same area, but this artwork is a pretty iconic one in our collection. So
I want to take a picture of that. Don't let it go away yet, pretty please.
and all of these artworks you are able to find on our website. We just rolled out a new website so you can do
Thank you.
some of your own research on artworks in our collection. We have everything's available to view now, which was never the case before.
Are you allowed to take pictures in the museum?
Mm-hmm.
I think
Unless it's specifically specifies, which I can't think of any artworks on view right now that don't, you're allowed to take photography without a flash.
You have made such a difference in my life through showing me what you have in your collection and what you've brought to us.
Oh, well, it's fun because we never get to see it ourselves. And so one of the benefits of working virtually is we all get to see artworks now that we probably would never have seen otherwise. So
The
it's
rest,
fun. We're all learning together.
yes.
I love the line art in this.
Yeah. Can't you feel it's a wood cut? So he was cutting into a wood block. And can't you just feel that?
Yeah.
It's amazingly accurate
Mm-hmm.
considering it's a woodcut.
Mm-hmm. It's beautiful. It's really beautiful.
Peggy, you're a doll.
You guys are the best. I'm glad you're all warm and home. Hopefully you stay that way.
We want your washer to get well.
If I show up at your doorstep with a big old load of laundry.
I want my water to get well.
I do too, so that I can use my washer and my washing machine.
I know.
Absolutely. So Peggy, next time will be abstract art.
Abstract. Janine, we're hitting up abstract next week per your recommendation. So
let me see if I have a doctor's appointment that day.
Oh, I hope not. Well, the good thing is if we don't see next week, we can do abstract again because we have more abstract than you can shake a stick at. So we'll hit you another week if we can't hit you next week.
February. Next week will be Wednesday,
the 24th.
The 24th.
Yay!
I don't have appointments that day.
Perfect.
Excellent. Excellent.
All right, friends, we'll stay warm. It was good seeing all your faces, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you so much, Peggy. Have a great day.
Thank you,
Stay
Peggy.
warm.
Enjoy these visits.
Yes, we all do, don't we?
Yes.
I look forward to it. You guys are like my good friends, so I'm glad we can do this. Talk to y'all later.
Peggy.
Thank you. Bye.
Oh, what a dear.
Yes.
Yes. Let me stop our.
Where did Myra and Don go?
Right after we got started, she sent me a text and said they lost their power again.
Oh, no.
Yes, just right after Peggy got a start. So they're scrambling again. Okie dokie. Tomorrow we have Mind Fit with Dave Parks. And you know, he gave us some things to really think about last time. He put me through my paces, I know. Sometimes we do that.
He's very good.
He is very good. I look forward to that for tomorrow.